Hi, this is Tyler with Power Tank, and in this video we are going to be using our super pump to refill a 10-pound power tank and a 20-ounce Power Shot bottle. When you purchase the super pump, you get the pump, of course, and you have an option to grab one of our scales. This is a great one. It weighs up to 150 kilograms, but it's sensitive enough to weigh your 20-ounce Power Shot bottles. You can use a different scale, but this is what we have. It runs off a 9-volt, or you can grab an adapter. You also are going to have some gloves and safety goggles. And you'll need to supply the pump with air source, about 120 psi. We just run it off our shop air compressor, which is 150 psi, and it runs it no problem. And then, of course, you'll need to grab some 50-pound CO2 bottles. You have to make sure that your gas supplier gets you bottles with dip tubes or siphon tubes, basically a straw that goes down to the bottom of the bottle and pulls the liquid from the bottom rather than the vapor that sits on top. All right, so let's get to filling. We're going to start with a 10-pound tank. Now I have it here in this chest freezer. The reason for that is CO2 likes low pressure vessels. Cold vessels are low pressure vessels. So you can either use a chest freezer like us. Occasionally, especially when it's really hot out, we'll fill a bucket with ice and put some water in there, and that will chill the bottle. Basically, you want about a 40-degree delta between your fill bottle and your mother bottle. That just helps the CO2 to flow. This one has the regulator on, so I'm going to take that off. Generally, if you're filling customer bottles, it's good to take the regulator off, give it back to them at the time that they drop off the tank. That way, you're not liable for it. All right, once your regulator is off, you want to open your valve. Typically, you want to do this outside, but there's not a whole lot left in here, I know. So you're going to open that, make sure the bottle's empty. You always start with an empty bottle, that way you get an accurate fill. Once the bottle's empty, you're going to hook up the pump, or the valve. Goes on like so. Then take a power wrench and tighten it. Because we use a never loose seal, you don't have to get it super tight. We say 2-finger or about that much. That's good. Turn the scale on. And then you want to zero it out. Alright, that looks good. And we just open the... So obviously you'll hear the CO2 flow. Typically you're going to look for about 50% fill, depending on how cold the bottle is, 50 to 75%, just transfill. This is just mother bottle pushing liquid CO2 through the line into your fill bottle. And then you'll hear it once you stop hearing the flow. It basically has reached equilibrium between the mother and the fill bottle, and that's when you turn the pump on. Alright, so I stopped it a little short of 10 pounds. That's just because we don't want to there's always a risk of overfilling, and especially in the summertime when the weather's hot. It can get overpressurized, and at 3,000 psi the safety disc will blow. So I generally like to go a little under, and that will just raise the temperature ceiling that much higher. I'd rather have a 1/4 pound less than a full fill than risk getting too much in the bottle. You also notice that mid-fill, around the 7-pound mark, I shut the pump off. That's because I thought I heard the compressor turn on. Generally, if the compressor's running because it's empty, I don't also want to have the pump running. I want to let the chamber fill a little bit. That puts less stress on the compressor and puts less stress on the pump. I shut the pump off, shut this bell valve off, shut the tank off. And we're good. Now I can use the power wrench again, pull this nut off. That little burst of CO2 was just what's trapped between this valve and this valve. And once that's out, I can just get it with my hand. All right, easy as that. Since I have the regulator here, I'm going to put it back on. And tighten the nut. Again, you don't need a lot of torque. Just that much will do you. And if you want to check, I always go up, open the valve, show pressure on the regulator, close it, and hand it back to the customer. All set to go. Now we'll get this off the scale, and we'll show you how to fill a 20 ouncer. Very similar process. All right, here's your 20 ounce, fresh from the freezer. Take the cap off, and I'm going to put the pin valve adapter on first. And that's because now that this is open, I can drop the pin down. And again, we always want to start with an empty bottle. So if there was CO2 in here, I can empty that out. I knew this was empty, otherwise I would go outside to drain it. All right, we have this little doohickey. Basically helps the bottle stand up while it's connected. To connect the CO2 net, got the power wrench, and there we go. Okay, one thing I want to note, this pin valve, as long as it's maybe 75% open, that's all you want to, that's all that's needed. If you go too deep, you can actually re-shut the pin valve inside. So 75% will give you full flow. Good. Make sure this is off. We're going to open our mother bottle. We're going to zero our scale. And I'm going to change the units to ounces. All right, excellent. Okay, we're ready to fill. Just like before, open the valve. And just let it flow. All right, since this bottle started out colder, it's stuck in the freezer a little bit. We were able to transfer most of it without even using the pump. So we got 19.75 ounces in here. That's a great fill. Make sure it's shut. We're going to close the pin here. In other words, open the nut screw and disconnect it. If you're filling multiple 20 ounces in a row, you don't have to make disconnect here, but because we let out the trapped pressure between these two valves, it just makes it easier to unscrew. Put the cap back on. It's ready to go. All right, so after filling our last bottle, we want to make sure we purge any CO2 left in the system. So I'm going to close the mother bottle. I'm going to take the never lose seal out of the nut nipple. So that's what it looks like. And then you're just going to open this up. Put the seal back in. And the scale has an auto off, but you can manually shut it off as well. One thing to note when you do receive your super pump, there is a bit of assembly. You're just essentially going to put this hose and this hose onto the main pump, and then we recommend having a dedicated table or something where you can actually bolt this or screw it down. Again, just makes your life easier. And filling your power tanks and your power shots is as simple as that. Power Pump is a great tool for our power tank dealers. It will help you sell the power tank. It adds convenience to your customers. And when they come back to get their power tank filled, they'll have time to peruse your display room. It's also great if you don't necessarily live next to someplace that can refill your bottle, but you can get CO2 delivered to your home garage. And it's also great for 4x4 clubs. It's an awesome membership perk. Thank you for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.